Hey, Nathan here. Welcome to the very first tutorial for the Unity2D series. In this tutorial, we are going to go over the user interface. We're going to load in a sample project that Unity provides during the install, and it will actually be a 3D project. This user interface will look pretty much the same regardless if you're working in 2D or 3D. So I might duplicate this video and have that in the 3D series as well. So you'll get Unity, and if you want to, you can get Visual Studio. If you want to use something else, you can do that too. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Unity here. And let me go ahead and open up the standard project. I was going to create my own tutorial that covers the UI, but might as well just discuss the standard asset example project. So this will be 3D. It will have a lot of assets and stuff we can discuss and a lot of stuff going on. And I already played around with it a little bit. Okay, so in this main view, we have our scene. You can see that our scene is selected. And this is what our game looks like. What our world looks like. We can move the camera around and kind of investigate some stuff. Use your mouse wheel to scroll up and down. Hold your mouse wheel down to move the camera, and hold down your right mouse to change where it's pointing at, and that kind of stuff. So you can move around your game world and look at where your objects are and things like that. If you want to actually see what it looks like when you start your game, you can click this Game tab here, and that's actually what it will look like when you start your game. But if you want to get an overview of the world in a free-flowing camera, you can just move around in the Scene tab. And left mouse will select objects. As you see, it's selecting objects here. And if I do select the camera, where's the camera? Where did that go? Main camera, you see at the bottom here, it does have a preview of what the camera sees. Okay. On the left side here, we get our game hierarchy. That's where game objects are. Things like our camera, our car, its collision points, its colliders. All these things are in the hierarchy. And we'll get more in depth on these different portions as we progress in the series. But this is just a very basic overview of what the UI is, and just so you know where things are. So if you're looking for a game object in your scene, you can go here, you can search up here, or you can just select. Like if I'm looking for my car, I want to select the car. So that selects all the car's elements that are nested in that car object. It includes the colliders, the wheel hubs, things like that. So I just select car and it will select everything. If I just select colliders, it will just select the colliders. Down here at the bottom, we have our assets. In the project tab, we have our assets. Things like the scripts, our music files, sound effects, our images, any asset that we need for our game, our models, 3D models, things like that. Anything that our game needs to use in order to run properly. If you use XML to have like weapons, and you build weapons by using an XML file, you would put the XML in the assets section. And then you would have a script that would read that XML and parse that to an actual weapon that your object can use in the middle of the game. So down here is the project section where we have our assets. You can filter it down by favorites, like all scripts. So all these scripts are provided in this project. Now that leads me into the next part I want to mention. If you want to see what a script contains, you can just click it once, and you can get a quick overview on the right side of the code in the script. If you actually want to change and manipulate it, you can double click it. In my case, it'll open up in Visual Studio 2015. And once I open that up, I will move it to my monitor so you could see it. It does take some time to open up, especially for me since I have ReSharper on top of the actual Unity setting up the project. But this is what it looks like here, now that I have that script open. It's the standard Visual Studio style. Everything's what you might assume a project would be in Visual Studio. So I can go ahead and close this out. So if you just want to see what a script is, you can just left click it once and it'll appear on here. And then you can quickly glance at what it is. If you want to actually edit, you can double click it and it'll open it up. So those are scripts. We'll discuss what prefabs and all this other stuff is as we get further on in the series. Let's close this search out. Okay, let's talk about the inspector on the right side. So let's actually run our game quick. So at the top here, let's do this first because this will lead me into talking about the inspector. At the top here, you'll see we can play our game. We just hit the leftmost icon, which is a arrow, and we can play our game. And it does have audio. Let me turn that down a bit. Okay. So we know it does have audio. That's the car making that sound, and I can actually go into the game and drive the car around. So this is actually the game running. And I can run into this. And there we go. So then I just hit play again, and it will stop, and it will take me back. So I wanted to play the game first so I can discuss something here. So if I hit play, here's the car. So I stop it again. Now, let's go to the colliders, and I'll discuss the inspector on the right side. Every game object on the left side can have components attached to it on the right side. You see these colliders have transform, cube, mesh filter, row or box collider, and mesh renderer, which is not toggled on. If it is toggled on, you'll see it looks like a little white box. And then if I hit play, now it's rendering that mesh. So if I go back and turn that back off, that mesh is not rendered anymore. But look at this box collider. If we want to adjust some components of our game to say, I don't want these colliders on anymore. So I untoggle these, just check them off, then I run the game, and uh-oh, our car is now falling through the world because it doesn't have a collider attached to it. So our objects can have components attached to them. Most commonly for us in the 2D series, they will be scripts. We will have some other stuff that we will attach to our objects, but it will be mostly scripts. Let's see if I can find one that has a script. This one has audio source as a component, wheel collider, and all this other stuff. This does have a script. So, wheel hub front right at the very bottom, that does have a wheel effect script file that is running. And then I can actually look into that script file. So wheel effects, and I can see what's going on in that script file. So these can have scripts attached. They can have renderers, colliders, all sorts of components. You can click add components. You can see what kind of physics components. That's what all these colliders are. You can just take a look around. We'll get into all this stuff as we progress in the series. Some controls here on the top left. We can change what our left click does. Right now it's moving the scene around our camera where we are looking at in our scene. This will select, this second icon will select our objects. So this third icon, this is useful for when you select an object. Let's look at the car. When I select the car, well now, I'm selecting the world. So I'm holding down the world and I'm rotating it because I have that rotation icon selected. So now if I hit play, Things are just going crazy now. Since our world is all messed up. I tilted the entire world. So things are all messed up now. This icon here, we select an object and we can move it up. We can kind of manipulate it. Move these up and down and to the left and to the right, and we can make it wider and narrower or taller or shorter, things like that. And we can click the box in the middle to make it bigger or smaller. And then once you reach that point where it goes to the negative, it will flip it. So those are a few examples of tools here. We'll get more advanced. We'll talk about this pivot and stuff like that in the future videos. But now let me reset this. Let me go back. Okay, so now we are back to an actual flat world, and we are back to a decent starting point. Okay. So we'll talk about layers in a future video as well. There's layers and then there's sorting layers. Layout, we can actually look at different types of the cameras. And that kind of changes how we're looking at it. I prefer the default because I primarily don't work in 3D. Once we get to 3D, that will probably change. But for now, we'll just look at the default view. Okay, that's pretty much it for a basic UI overview. Let's discuss the menu system quick. File, basic stuff you see here. New scene, open, save, all that stuff that's usually in file. Edit is pretty standard as well. You can settings and stuff like that. But the thing we're going to use most often is this game object menu entry. And we will create empty objects in our game. And we will attach images and scripts and all that stuff to an empty object. We will have a default camera for our 2D game. We might do some lights and things like that. Components, we discussed that already on the inspector, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so that's it for this video. Very basic video, just getting you started on the user interface. Next video, we will actually look at adding a sprite. Alright, so next week is a week off, and then the following week there will be 2 Unity2D videos. One that will cover adding sprites, and another one that will discuss adding a script in order to add keyboard movement for that sprite. So I hope to see you next time.